now we can round off our put and delete API calls. To do that, let's start with the put, which is responsible for updating a particular user. So what I think we should do is the first thing we can remove is all of these references to the fake database that we had before. So it's these lines over here. And then what I'm going to do is just leverage some of the code that we've already written for finding a single user. So we know that this code works, and I can say that if there were no validation errors, now we're going to try to find the particular user with the ID that is being passed in. And we can move this code over here where we're checking the rec params and iterating through them. We can move that inside after we check that the specified user could be successfully found. So what this code is going to do is it's going to do the same error checking that we were doing before, and if we pass those error checks, now we're going to say get the updates from the rec.params. We're probably going to want to say delete updates.id. ID is passed in. We don't really want to overwrite that. And then for each field that we have, we're going to set the user field equal to whatever's coming in. And then last but not least, we can call user save, which we can borrow from our post function. And this is going to save that particular user to the database. You'll recall we have to remove the restriction on isInt from our IDs, because IDs within Mongo are allowed to be alphanumeric. So for now, we'll just remove the restriction altogether. And if we've done everything correctly, we should now be able to issue an update command. So if I do a get to see who's currently in the database, we see that there are 3 users. My nodemon is still running, so we know that the changes are in effect. I'll take this user over here, this one that ends in F1, and I'll issue a put user request, and as the body, I'll try to change his first name to Jimmy. So I'm not going to change any of the other fields. I'm just issuing a put for this particular user, and we get a successful response indicating that his name has been changed. And now if I issue a get request to the root, we'll see that his name comes back as Jimmy instead of Jim. And furthermore, if I were to check in MLab and just check out all the documents that are here, refresh the page, we'll see that our second user has first name Jimmy instead of Jim. The last thing we want to do now is round off our delete API call. And this is going to be fairly straightforward now that we've done the other calls. We remove the restriction that the ID has to be an integer. We can borrow this giant find one block and replace the code that you see over here. So the code that actually goes and validates that the user can be found in the database will work as we expect. We no longer need this code that iterates through the request parameters. So we can go ahead and just delete that code. And the function we are looking for now that we have our user object is the remove function. We can say error removing user from the database if anything goes wrong. And now you'll see that it's doing what we want it to actually do. So once again, we're finding a user as we did before. We are checking to make sure this user is a valid user in our database. If so, we'll remove the user and we'll return the information about the user that we just removed. So if I head to Postman, I've got 3 of my users. I'll copy and paste the Jimmy user, the ID, and I'll issue a request to delete this particular user. Don't have to pass any other information, just delete. And you'll see that we get a success followed by the information of the particular user that was deleted. And if I were to now issue a GET request to the root to list all users, we see that the Jimmy user is gone. Okay, so that rounds off the put and delete API calls. I'll see you in the next lesson.